What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. I noticed just in my circles that it seems quite common that our families, our loved ones, our inner circles often don't really understand what it is that we do as therapists, and therefore they can be quite unsupportive. Some are blatantly unsupportive, like they tell us, I do not support you in this career path, and others are unsupportive in these more kind of covert ways, like unintentional ways. So I thought I would talk about some of the ways that this presents, or that I've seen this present, and also share some tools, some support in case you're in this situation to kind of help you get the support that you need. Now, to the credit of our loved ones, if they haven't directly benefited from an excellent therapeutic experience themselves, it's hard for them to know what it is that we do. There's so much kind of secrecy around what we do by definition due to confidentiality that most people don't really know what we do unless they're also a therapist, or maybe if they've been through their own therapy themselves. So above and beyond the lingering stigma around mental health care that continues, I think this also lack of awareness of what therapy actually looks like is one of the contributing factors to those that care about us not really understanding what it is that we do and therefore being unsupportive. So whether you're hoping to become a therapist someday, or if you've been a therapist for a while now, all of us are definitely impacted when our loved ones aren't able to be supportive towards us. Our profession calls us to support others kind of by definition, and so we need somebody to support us in order to have the ability to support others to begin with. So for today, I thought we might as well dive into some of the ways that I've seen that loved ones and family members can be unsupportive, whether family of origin or the family that you're a part of now, or just the folks that you are most interconnected with at the moment, and talk about some ways that we can, improve that situation and get the support that we need. So as I run through this list of different ways that our loved ones might be unsupportive, you'll notice that they're all reflective of a different category of misunderstanding. And with that said, one of the common ways that we can be misunderstood by our loved ones and therefore not well supported is that our loved ones think we just listen to people talk all day long. We talked about this one in a video I made not too long ago about common misconceptions about therapists, and you'll see some overlaps between this episode and that episode as well, because our loved ones have some of these same misconceptions about us as well. Now, again, to the credit of our loved ones, if they haven't sat through their own positive therapeutic experience, then they're probably not going to really understand that what we do is so much more than just sitting and listening to people talk all day, even though, yes, we do listen to people talk all day. And so then what can happen is our loved ones, under the misconception that we have a pretty easy gig going on, can downplay the work that we do and not realize how much support that we need. Another way we can be misunderstood and unsupported is when our loved ones see how many therapy clients we see per week and interpret that as us working part-time. Of course, what full-time looks like can vary a lot depending on where you work, but also I would argue depending on your own kind of energy levels, sensitivities, abilities, etc. Nonetheless, with all of that said, I would make a clear argument that 20 client hours a week is working full time. If we think of a full-time work week as how many hours per week that you work, then maybe perhaps if you're in private practice and you're seeing 20 clients per week, you're not actually sitting at a desk or a therapy chair working for 40 hours of the week. But energetically, I can almost guarantee you that somebody seeing 20 therapy clients per week is probably spending a lot more energy day in and day out than somebody who's working a typical desk job for 40 hours a week, or potentially even more than 40 hours a week. So then what can happen is our loved ones see that we're only seeing, 25 clients a week, 15 clients a week, 10 clients a week, whatever many clients a week that you're seeing. And if, let's say, we're complaining about our income, they might say, well, you're only working part-time. What did you expect? Or they might be worried about, household joint income and saying like, hey, you're not pulling your end of the bargain. Pick up the pace because you're only working part-time, and it can really just spiral to an unhelpful place very quickly. And similarly, a lot of our loved ones are very concerned about how little income we tend to earn on average as therapists. And it's true. on average, most therapists really don't get paid enough. So if you're sharing your finances with a loved one, or maybe you're expected to contribute to the pot of your family of origins finances or something like that, it might be a source of tension, and folks might point towards your career as the problem. Like, why did you choose this career when you don't earn enough? And that translates to a lack of support. And of course, it could be really easy for a loved one to kind of point to the profession, blame systemic issues for that. But in a lot of cases, especially when there's a lot of fear or resentment and that sort of thing built up in the relationship, then the blame can be pointed on us. Somehow that we're not working hard enough, or we did this intentionally, or we don't care about the other person. I mean, we all know how these things can spiral to a much darker place. And building on some of the points we made already, because folks think we have such an easy job and maybe we're only working part-time, there's little or no empathy for us when we're having a tough day, or we're struggling, or we're dealing with burnout, you name it. If we're having a tough time with our career, sometimes we may not get that much empathy from our loved ones for it. Again, until you're sitting in the therapist chair day in and day out and feeling what it feels like to see our therapy clients, it's hard to empathize with the idea of like, yeah, you only saw 4 clients today, like must be nice. How can you be complaining about it when actually energetically we may have expended a lot more energy than our loved ones, or at least the same amount of energy as our loved ones who might be working something more like a desk job for 8 or 9 hours a day. Like, we don't get a free pass to zone out for 2 minutes in the middle of a therapy session, or, just like real quick, click over to another tab and check our email or respond real quick to a text message. By the way, if you are doing that or your therapist is doing that, that is a no-no. We should not be doing that. Our clients deserve our undivided full attention for that therapy hour, every single client, every single week. So yeah, it kind of pulls for a different kind of energy than maybe the average job. So I think a way to just kind of sum up a theme around the ways that our loved ones might misunderstand what we do and therefore become unsupportive is that because they can't really see what it's truly like to be in our shoes day in and day out, they can only really go off of these kind of very, very surface level numbers, like how many clients a week are we seeing, or how much income are we earning? And they might look at that and say, like, that doesn't look like much. You're not working that much and you're not earning that much. So what the heck are you doing? And I think for a lot of our loved ones, that might cause them to deter us from the career. If it's a loving, protective caregiver figure saying like, why would you choose this career that, doesn't pay well? Or, if it's somebody we share a household with saying like, hey, you seem tired and burned out and you're not even working that much and you're not even getting paid that much. Like, why don't you just switch careers? And at least for some of us, our loved ones just like blatantly don't understand what it is that we do at all. I mean, I relate. I remember many times my mom would ask me questions like, why would you want to talk to crazy people all day? The stigma that she carried around mental health care ran so deep that her conception of who would call a therapist for help was so otherizing that she just like couldn't step out of that viewpoint. So there was no way that I was ever going to receive anything that looked even a little bit like support from my mom for my career, because she just wasn't able to understand at all what it was that I do. And I think that can be true for a lot of us as well. So if you're in this boat where your loved ones are not as supportive of your career as you'd like, here are some tools to consider to help make sure you get the support you need. One tip is, instead of emphasizing things like numbers, hours, pay, specifics about our day-to-day, instead to emphasize specifics around why we've chosen this career path, or why we continue to believe it's worthwhile to stick with this career path. I think for a lot of our loved ones who genuinely want to offer their care and support for us, they see us just so tired or underpaid or whatever kind of list of hardships might be at play, and they might want to protect us from those. Say like, this isn't working, it's not adding up. Why don't you quit, or why don't you pivot? And then, of course, for us, we can find that just so unsupportive because maybe we're not wanting to quit. So if we can help fill in the blanks for them and say, I get that this is a really hard career path that I've chosen, but I want to stick with this path for these reasons, or this is why this feels worthwhile to me, and all of that, and be specific about that, then when you come home and say, I had a really tough day, rather than them reacting with like, you should quit, or like, yeah, that employer does not pay you enough, or whatever their kind of complaining type empathy they have for you, that they could instead say like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, how can I support you? Because they can at least get that you're not looking to bash or quit your job. You just need some empathy for maybe a tough moment in time, but you're still gonna, wake up and go to that job again the next day. And kind of in the same vein, especially when we have something more challenging or we need some kind of support from a loved one, rather than being specific about the details of the challenge, keep that part more general and instead be very specific about what support would look like for you right now. So for example, rather than saying like, I had such a long day, I had 2 intakes, and my couple therapy client yelled at me for the entire hour, and then I had this insurance claim denied, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Instead to say, I had a really long day, I'm so tired, you know what would help me right now? Can we just order takeout for dinner? And is it okay if I go to bed a little bit early today? That would just help me out so much, right? So be specific about the support that you need rather than the reasons why you're maybe needing some support, if that makes sense. And I get that even after all of this is said and done, our loved ones may not always be able to offer the kind of support that we need when it comes to like feeling supported in our career. And I do stand by my belief that all of us need at least some trusted therapists in our lives who like really get it because they're doing the same stuff that we're doing, to get some amount of support. Like we can't get all of our support just from our circle of family members or those we're in the same household with. We really do need therapists in our lives who can see that part of our experience that really like no one else is ever going to quite get it. And unfortunately, there are going to be some cases where some of our loved ones may not be able to even remotely understand at all what it is that we're doing. And therefore, they might just not be able to offer any support. And so then support might look like setting healthy boundaries with those particular loved ones, as far as like maybe not letting them fully into that part of your life and finding other avenues where you can get that support from elsewhere. Okay, I had this whole plan where I was going to stop recording here and then film a bunch of skits to go along with each of these points, but it is a busy week. I do not have that much childcare. So I'm going to leave it here, and I hope you don't mind how low-key this episode is going to be as far as the edit. All of that really stems into gratitude. I'm so grateful that I'm not film my skits and have my low-key episode this week, and appreciate you coming along for the ride, and that I can, just go pick up my kids and, I don't know, fold laundry. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this episode. Therapy Notes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing. They have a HIPAA-secure telehealth platform and so much more. If you'd like to check out Therapy Notes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, thanks for hanging with me. I know the content of this episode is maybe a little bit heavier than my typical, but I hope you found it supportive. I know this is a sensitive topic, so only do this if you want to and it supports you, but feel free to add to the list that I shared today in the comments below of ways that either family might be not so supportive of your career, or any tips or tools you have to make sure you're still getting the support that you need so that others can glean from your wisdoms. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.